Hi everyone, welcome to the Bird's Nest. If you're here because you lost a baby yourself, if you're going through it right now, if you lost a baby years ago, or if you're here to support somebody who is going through this terrible loss, then I'm so sorry that you're here. But I am happy to help, and I have some awesome books that really helped me through my journey, and I really want to share them with you because I think that I really needed something like this when I was going through my journey, and I really want to be helpful for anyone, even if I just help one person. So we're going to go through some books that really helped me. They're all different, and I know just one of them will speak to you. And let's be there for each other and honor our babies. After I had my 22-week loss, I felt like I didn't have a lot of resources, and I felt really alone. And one thing that I turned to during that time were books. And I read quite a few, and some of them helped me a lot at a time when I needed support and I needed validation and acknowledgement that what I was feeling was real and my baby was important and all of that stuff. I found that in books. So the first book that I want to be sharing with you guys is called Empty Cradle, Broken Heart. And this book is the third edition, and it's written by someone called Deborah L. Davis. She's a PhD. I do not think that Deborah herself has had a baby loss, but through her work, she has encountered a lot of people who have. And through her work, she kind of became very interested in how to help people that have lost a baby and try to kind of change the way that people view it, change the stigma, and also the way that medical professionals handle baby loss. This book goes all the way from finding out you're pregnant all the way to the end to what it means to want to have another baby after your loss, or if you have other children, how to talk to them about your loss, and everything in between. So what I love most about this book is while it is written by Deborah, it's also written by families just like us. Families that have lost their babies. Families who have lost their babies in the first trimester. Families who have lost their babies at the very end. And it goes through the whole spectrum of kinds of losses. How did you lose your baby? There's all different kinds of ways that this terrible thing can happen to you. And sometimes you can find comfort within your community of, okay, you've lost a baby, and then you can find even more comfort within your community of, oh, you lost your baby just like I lost my baby. So that can be extremely comforting as well. And that's in this book. There are so many different families in this book telling their stories. You don't have to read it from beginning to end. You can basically just skip to the chapters that you feel like hold meaning for you at the moment, or you feel like will be helpful. There might be certain chapters that right now you feel like might be triggering for you, and you want to skip over them and maybe come back to them at a later time. And that's the way that this book is meant to be used, as kind of a guide for where you are right now in your life. And that's why it's so amazing. So the way that each chapter works is it has quotes from different families about what they experienced. For example, in the Grief and Mourning chapter 2, Desi said, "It would have helped if somebody had educated us and told us what it was going to be like and said, you're going to feel things. Don't think you're going crazy because it's normal. I didn't know what was going on, so I thought I was going crazy and I didn't want to tell anybody about my feelings." So each chapter will have quotes, and then each chapter will also have passages written by Deborah, which helps explain the quotes, may help you understand better what it is that you might be feeling. And then at the end, it has points to remember. So it basically summarizes like what was written in the chapter, and if you just want to read that, you can just read that too. There's no rules. You just read whatever you want to read because it's all about what's going to help you. So don't feel like you just have to pick this up and read it from beginning to end. You can literally get it and just use it however you need it at that time. Right after you lose a baby, there's like so many thoughts just ruminating through your head, and it's so hard to keep track of all of them. It goes so deep, like it just goes so deep. And this book to me helps you keep track of those thoughts and like compartmentalize them. Like, where does this thought belong? Where does this thought belong? Instead of everything just bleeding into each other and you just want to go crazy, you just want to go insane, you don't know what's happening, you don't know what you're thinking, you don't know what to do, you don't know anything. And I feel like this book like helps you put everything in order of like what you're thinking, because it can be so overwhelming. I really love this option for a book also if you have people that are trying to support you and they don't really know how, or you don't really know how to tell them how to support you. Because sometimes it's really hard to tell somebody in the thick of this what you need, how to support you, the best ways to be there for you or not be there for you, or talk to you or not talk to you. And this book will explain it really, really well for them. They will kind of get like a deeper understanding into what is happening. Another reason why this is such a good option for when you are fresher in your loss, or for the first book that you might read after your loss, is because it comes from so many different people's perspectives. That, let's say you start off reading a book that's only from one person's perspective and you don't resonate with it and what they're saying doesn't really click with you, then you might just be turned off from books altogether. But the good thing about this one is that it has so many different people's opinions, so you're gonna find somebody that really speaks to your heart, and you're gonna find some piece of information that will help you, even if it's just the tiniest bit. That's worth it. It runs the whole spectrum of going through the motions of losing your baby, from finding out you're pregnant to the trauma of all of a sudden finding out something bad has happened, to actually physically losing your baby, to feeling like the medical world abandoned you, to feeling like family and friends abandoned you, to feel like you don't even know who you are anymore. And then on the flip side of that, to gaining a community, which is like the baby loss community, because we need to be here for each other, to what your life can look like months and years after losing your baby, because at the beginning it's completely hard to imagine that you will even have any sort of life worth living in months or years from now. And finally, how you can help your baby live on through your life. None of these feelings are surface level feelings. They're deep, they're complex. It also helps explain how people grieve differently, how different families grieve differently, how one woman will grieve differently from another woman, and especially how men and women can grieve differently from each other, and what that can do to a marriage. And even just reading about it and understanding it can help significantly. It also helped me with a lot of the logical questions I had, like about facts about things and statistics and things like that. But it more so helped with the spiritual and psychological aspects of the questions that I had. And like, for example, like, why do bad things happen to good people? And how is it even possible for me to move forward without my baby? One part of this book that I did find really helpful also was talking about different comforting techniques that might help, like mindfulness and meditation and things like that, but also other things. Like I said, everyone's different. So for me, for example, I could not meditate after my daughter died for a very long time, and because I just couldn't sit still with my thoughts. So it just like was not an option for me. I just tried and tried. I meditated a lot before she was born, so I knew that it was helpful, and I knew that I was capable of it, but after she died I just wasn't capable of it anymore. So this woman in the book, she couldn't do that either. And so I found comfort in knowing that I wasn't the only one that couldn't use these relaxing techniques to try to help me. And she found comfort in other ways, just like I was able to find comfort in other ways. It goes so deeply into the emotions of losing your baby that this book could not have been written by anybody except for families that lost their baby, because it goes so deep into the emotions. This book is meant to be your friend and a friend along with you on this journey, and you will find so many stories in here that you connect with. Tanya says, "One of the absolute hardest things for me was reconciling the fact that Oren lived and died inside my body. On the one hand, I was a sacred place. I had been the whole world to a little boy. This made me gorgeous. How could I ever feel bad about myself when I was blessed to be his home? But on the other hand, at the same time, I had been his coffin too. I felt indescribably contaminated, desecrated. How could I come to terms with this? This was the big gift from the Pilates teacher, not the body work itself, though I am sure it was good for me. What she said was something like this: I have never had kids myself, but I know that if I was dying, the place where I would feel the safest, the most held, would be with my mother. This was so powerful to me. It was exactly what I needed to hear. My son died in the place that was the safest to him, the only place he had ever known." So the parents and the families in this book share not only things that made them feel comforted, but also anything in the whole world that made them feel comforted, even words from somebody who never even has kids. When you lose a baby and the most random things can either hurt you or help you, these families are sharing those random things that help them, and there's a possibility that it could help you too. It goes over sex after losing a baby and why some people might want to have sex and feel closer to their partner, and why some people might not want to have sex. I did not want to. I was on the other side of that, where I just couldn't even imagine doing it for a while. And it also goes into birth control. Birth control can even be a trigger if you decide that you want to start birth control after your loss. It's a lot. It's all a lot. And people who aren't in it don't understand how many choices happen afterwards, how many things happen afterwards, how you have to start going through life without your baby. It's these things can be so hurtful, they can be so hard. Even the choice to start birth control or have sex, these can be really, really hard decisions. It goes through a whole list of is this normal? Is this normal? Is this normal? Is this normal? Is it normal to be triggered by pregnant women on the street? Is it normal to not want to go to your friend's baby shower? Are these things normal? And this book will go through all of this is it normal stuff. This book isn't just meant for moms, it's meant for dads too. So while I said they have all those quotes in there from the family, some of them are moms, some of them are dads. They do have same-sex couple families too. And I think it's important because this book is not just for women. It's not just for the mom. It's for dads too. And oftentimes the dad's experience or the person that wasn't carrying the baby's experience can be quite different and carries its own unique weights and hurts and hardships. So I think that this is really important to be included in the book. For example, Charlie says, "Remember, you have to grieve too. Being strong isn't holding it back. Cry, support your wife, and grieve together. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset. You're not weird. You're not odd. Don't be afraid to take time off work. Don't feel ashamed to talk about it. Go to a counselor. Talk to your wife about it. Talk to other people who have been through it. Remember that you'll live another day and you'll have to live for your wife and your children. Remember that you'll see him again and he'll be alive and well. That's another coping strategy but from a man's perspective, which I think it's really great how they cover both. To take away from this book, the most valuable thing that it taught me and helped me with was that after my loss, I felt so alone, and picking up this book really made me feel like I had a support, I had a friend, and that no matter what anybody else in the outside world said, what I was feeling was normal. I wasn't crazy, and I had now a whole world of people that understood me and how I feel. So when you lose your baby, you feel like nobody can possibly understand this pain, and there are other families that do understand your pain, and this is like a new community that you now belong in. Like, you belong here. And thank God for this book, because it made me realize that after I lost my baby and I felt like I didn't belong anywhere, that there was this new place that I did belong. And while it felt so unfortunate, like why me? Like, why does this have to happen to me? It is, on the flip side, so fortunate that we have each other. That this didn't just happen to one woman because she would feel so alone. The chapter about affirming your baby was especially hard for me to read, and I kind of had to skip over it at first and come back to it because I didn't have a lot of people who affirmed my loss, and it helps me to read when other people didn't have that as well, and how they got through that and how they coped with that and how they spoke to people and all that stuff. Like, it helps me to read those things, but it also hurts me to read about people who have so much support. Like, that's really, I'm so happy for them, because that's how it should be for everybody. But it's really hard for me to read through that. It brings up the most triggers out of the whole experience for me, because I had a lot of people putting me down and not a lot of people like loving me and helping me. So I am so happy for the people that have that, and I wish that I had that too. Emerson says, "It is amazing how many people think that if they don't mention your baby, you will get over it quicker. And I will always be amazed by the judgments people make when they don't even bother to have a conversation with me. We love talking about Addison and her tragically short life. It hurts us more when people pretend like she never existed." Not only can two individuals grieve very differently the loss of a baby, also the loss of a baby in and of itself is like a unique grief. Partly because you don't have all of these like memories to hang on to and hold on to, but you love your baby more than anything in the entire world, but there aren't like all these tangible like things to hold on to. And so it's a very unique, like scary, you feel lost kind of grief. And reading through this book helps like give tips on ways that you can help make your grief more tangible. There's so little memories, but there's like a crazy amount of love. It's an immeasurable amount of love, and like those two things, it's just hard because you want to just like hang on to every little bit that you have, and you have so little. It has a whole chapter on like vulnerability and guilt, and like you don't get any more vulnerable than losing your child, and after you lose your child, it's like the guilt is impossible to turn away from, and it really dives deep into that, which I think is so important. I was suffering from terrible anxiety. I was convinced I was going to die and not see my kids grow up, and this was all consuming. It was the idea that life was so fragile and you have no control over it, and this rocked me to my core. I would wake up in the night with my heart racing, convinced that if I went to sleep I was going to die. One day I just couldn't turn off that dread, that something bad was going to happen, and I was almost shaking with agitation. It doesn't get any more vulnerable than that. There's a whole section on keys to survival, because that's what this is. This is what you are doing. You are surviving. You are just this much above water and just surviving in this world. That's what it feels like when you lose your baby. You need help just to survive. Like, forget about enjoying life, forget about laughing, having fun, food tasting good, anything wonderful. When you first lose your baby, you are just surviving, and sometimes you need tips just to get to the next day, just to get to the next hour, just to get to the next minute. So thank goodness this book has some tips on just surviving. It also mentions children's grief, and if you have any other children, or if you have close family members who are children and they need help understanding why they feel what they feel, try help if they need help explaining how they feel, then there's a chapter on that, and that can be really helpful too, because everybody's grief is different, and sometimes how old you are can also determine how you handle that. There's a lot of advice on how to educate well-meaning people, because a lot of people will mean well, but they'll say things that hurt and suck. And there's a lot of advice on how to handle that, and like good things to say for well-meaning people, because some people are not well-meaning and therefore do not even deserve a response. The chapter on trying for another baby or being pregnant again after a loss, that's very helpful as well, but that just might be one that you skip over until you're ready for it.